So we're trying something a little bit new here where we're going to almost put together like a training session with a podcast, I suppose, in terms of the content we're going to create. So you're going to get bang for your buck today in terms of a training session that I would usually do. So we got like a full body session. Intention is just building a little bit of capacity and resiliency at the muscular level. And then at the same time, we're going to sort of have like a discussion, some discussion points and a topic that we're going to cover, which for today is just some stuff that we've mentioned a lot in previous bits of content, which is just like youth-led's, I suppose, complete well-being approach. So we'll make a bit of a start to the training session, and then I suppose as we're going, we'll just touch on some different things throughout the training session. So, as mentioned today, our discussion points or our topics we were going to discuss is youth-led's complete well-being approach. Well, there's 4 components to it, but I think the first thing we wanted to discuss was the interrelatedness between the components. So we've released a graphic in the past which has the four components, which are physical, social, emotional, mental, and then also spiritual as well. And in that graphic, it gets sort of quite messy in the middle because there's all these arrows pointing from one to the other. And I think what it highlights is the realities of that none of them work in isolation, and that all of them influence the others sort of in one way or another. We can't have an intervention that targets, say, our physical well-being without considering aspects of the social, spiritual, or the emotional and mental. So that's something we've always been big on here at Youth-Led, is anything we try and do from a physical point of view needs to consider those other 3 components of well-being as well. So for example, to give a concrete example of that, we might have someone who comes to us like seeking some training for whatever particular reason, and we need to understand not just how the is going to help this person, but then also the environment they need to have the best possible chance to get the physical results that they want. That includes the people that they need to be around within that environment and like their key support networks and how they're going to influence them. But then also just how that person themselves, I suppose, is going to interact with the training that we provide and the environments that we provide and the people that we expose them to. Are they made in a certain way that they need a certain environment to be successful, or they need to be around certain people to be successful and to get the best possible chance of succeeding their attempts at improving their physical well-being. So our first component that we're going to discuss is the one that we just kind of built our name on, which is the physical well-being side of it. So the definition that we used for our physical well-being was it includes our health and fitness, but not just our health and fitness, it includes our lifestyle as well. And that's probably the big one that people usually forget, is the lifestyle component. Everyone goes straight to the health and fitness, and there's a lot of outcomes tied to that, whether it's like a sporting performance side of it, or there's an aesthetic component that they're seeking. But we're really big on, I suppose, not overfilling that bucket, and also concentrating on the lifestyle component of it as well, and how that plays a part in their physical well-being. So I suppose some of the things that people don't consider when it comes to the lifestyle, and they only think about the health and fitness side, is physical activity and how that plays a role in our physical well-being. So physical activity usually is unstructured, it's a little more informal, it's a little more recreational. The purpose of it's usually enjoyment as opposed to the outcomes we're desiring from, say, like weight training like this, or more structured forms of conditioning like swimming or bike riding, things like that. So we look at how we can incorporate physical activity in our days and our weeks and our months, but then also there's other forms of So as physical movement as well, like one that we're big on as well is incorporating active transport and finding ways to utilize that with our clientele as an incidental means to get physical activity worked into their day-to-day. And so what we're hoping by focusing on that lifestyle side of things, filling multiple buckets when it comes to physical well-being, and not just utilizing training as sort of like a masking agent, where we can, throughout our day-to-day, we can do, whatever we want and, be high in our sedentary behavior activities and really low in our physical activity levels, but then throw in some structured training in our week to try and make up for that. Whereas our intention is to balance that out and use structured forms of training more as like a cherry on top of the sundae. And underneath that is this lifestyle that incorporates physical activity as much as it can, so that our physical well-being is as well off as it can be and isn't sort of overrun by all these sedentary behaviors and sedentary activities. So the next component of well-being that we have is our social well-being. And we think of our social well-being as the environment you inhabit, but then, and probably more especially, the people that frequent that environment. So for us, that requires us to think about the spaces that we're providing for our clientele to train in, and the spaces they're going to inhabit when they're with us, accessing our services. And then also the people that we bring into those spaces, whether it's other clientele, whether it's other forms of support to help them, and how those people are going to, best help and interact with that individual. I suppose the biggest thing we need to ask ourselves when we consider this social well-being component is us using a certain environment or introducing a certain person into this client's world, is it going to make a positive or a negative impact on the intervention we're trying to get for this client? Part of that decision can be made by including the client in the decision-making process and giving them all the information they need to make the best decision about the environment they're in for the service and the training, or the people they're going to be around for the service and training. But a lot of it also comes down to our next component of well-being and how well we can understand this component with regards to the client, and that's their spiritual well-being. And so we define the spiritual well-being as, with regards to the client, how connected they are to self and how well they understand themselves. And for us, that's how well can we understand that is going to help determine whether or not that social well-being intervention we were going to make is going to be a positive or a negative one. So we mentioned before some of the traits of spiritual well-being being someone's values and beliefs, their likes, dislikes, could be their strengths, weaknesses as well. So if we're going to consider including a social component to someone's service, then we need to think about how aligned those things are between the two people. So do strengths complement weaknesses and vice versa? Is there shared likes? Is there conflict with dislikes? Is there a conflict in backgrounds of these people or their values? It's only once we consider those things can we decide if the intervention's worthwhile, because then it plays a major part in the final component, which is the emotional and mental component as well. If we decide to make that, incorporate that social side into the physical well-being intervention that we're trying to make, and it goes poorly, then this is probably the component that suffers the most, which we define as our thoughts, our feelings, and they really get influenced if we add a social component that doesn't go well. So what's really important for us in that instance is to be able to have open conversations with our clientele to get their thoughts and their feelings on maybe what we're planning to do or what's already been done and their feedback on what they think and how it's influenced them. Has it helped physically? Has it helped spiritually? Has it helped emotionally? Or has it become like a negative influence to what we were initially trying to accomplish? So hopefully that gives you a bit of an idea as to our components of well-being and how they all interrelate, and then how we consider that here at Youth Led. I think the biggest thing to consider and realize is that, you know, doing well in all of them isn't about, you know, being perfect and nailing all of them. It's more just having an understanding of all of them and being intentional in trying to address all of them. It's never going to be perfect. We're always going to make mistakes in different areas of them, but, you know, we always consider all four and how they interrelate with any decisions we make.